Straight to the medium-term financial plan. Thank you. Okay, the next item this evening is to consider a recommendation from the Strategy and Resources Committee held on the 20th of February 2023 in relation to the medium-term financial plan 2023-24 and 2026-27. The recommendation has been circulated by the way of an update report and is set out on page 1 of the main agenda pack. The original papers considered by the S&R committee are set out on the supplemental agenda. I would like to remind members that the time of the speeches are slightly different for the budget report, as any councillor may speak up to 5 minutes, each on this item, and one councillor from each party group may speak for up to 15 minutes each. As this is a committee recommendation, there is no requirement for the recommendation to be seconded. Councillor Gordon, as lead member, please can you move the recommendation? You may speak up to 15 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is an honour to be entrusted with the task of presenting this year's budget. I wish to thank the officers who prepared this balanced budget, an enormous team task. Despite the extensive challenges, they continue to work tirelessly to support our residents. There has been a slight uplift in the central government's grant settlement, but it simply is not enough and belies a complete derogation of duty. Even before the 2 years of the pandemic, a decade of relentless cuts to public sector funding were being felt nationwide. To provide some context, 5 councils have effectively declared themselves bankrupt, losing control of local financial planning. A further 12 councils have had to restore to extraordinary borrowing for everyday costs, all under this Tory government. The Institute of Government found that councils faced a £15 billion of real terms reduction in core government funding between 2010 and 2020. From £41 billion down to £26 billion. £15 billion is the equivalent of building over 160 hospitals, according to central government's own calculations. The Local Government Association analysis shows inflation estimated rise to the national living wage and increasing demand would lead to a further £3.4 billion funding gap in 2023-24 and a £4.5 million gap in 24-25. Imagine what we could do if that gap was closed. This funding gap is too big to be plugged by council tax increases alone. Even if councils cut all spending on culture, leisure services, such as libraries, swimming pools, open spaces, waste collection, and trading standards, they would still not save enough money to plug this gap, asserts the Local Government Association. Since last autumn, inflation has risen steeply to over 10%, which is putting everyone under considerable strain. Our Tory government, for ideological reasons, is hell-bent on unrelenting austerity. The Liberal Democrats are ambitious for Sutton. We want residents, public services, and businesses to thrive. But we know that we must live within our means. This is especially hard because demands for services continue to rise as our funding support reduces. Our Human Resources and Organisation Development Service continues to support managers and staff to deliver vital services to residents. Our approach to equality, diversity and inclusion has been recognised throughout a national award from the Municipal Journal, and we have recently been accredited as a race equality trailblazer by Race Equality Matters. New digital services have been launched, including the Sutton Information Hub, connecting Sutton residents to 425 services in their local areas. Sutton has also continued to lead the South London Partnership, a cross-borough Internet of Things programme, an award-winning programme which showcases how digital technology can generate economic growth and help people live better, healthier lives. It has been a good year for our investment property portfolio, with growth in asset values and a net income of £3.3 million, which is being used to keep vital services going. In addition, vacancies for lettable spaces are at a lowest level at 0.2%. Now to the finances. We all know the challenges looming ahead are going to be difficult, owing to high levels of inflation and increasing energy costs. It is the fifth year that we have received only a one-year settlement rather than the hoped-for multi-year settlement from the central government, making it very difficult for us to plan ahead properly. The Tory government has reduced Sutton's grant funding in real terms, thus putting extra pressure on local services, which were already under strain in light of our ageing population and a growing demand for services, including special education needs. Our borough will continue to face significant financial and social challenges. I honestly think that the central government is too busy trying to bolster its reputation to avoid a rebellion from within its own ranks and reduce what is likely to be a drubbing in the upcoming elections to care about the real problems on the ground. The Tories look like a bunch of privileged and incompetent clowns who are completely failing to grasp the depth of the crisis. By contrast, this local Liberal Democrat administration, steady and prudent, competently planning our finances in the spirit of remaining ambitious for Sutton. What I said last year about our long-term proactive approach to financial planning in difficult circumstances is even more relevant now. We have closed the budget gap by delivering savings of over £100 million between 2010 and 2021, whilst continuing to protect frontline services as far as possible. We have identified a further £9 million of savings in the plans for the next 2 years, 2023, 24 and 24-25, taking the cumulative total to £107 million. We are vigilant when it comes to vulnerable children and adults, yet we also know how to manage a tight budget. That our plans are progressive is more important than ever. By way of example, here are some of the key achievements. We are helping Sutton residents to deal with the rising cost of living through advice, guidance, and direct financial support. Working with our NHS colleagues to help people live independently at home and minimise unnecessary hospital stays. Continuing to support children and families throughout holiday activities, food programmes and family hubs. Championing Sutton's diversity by welcoming the growing population of displaced people from Ukraine, Afghanistan and Hong Kong. Deploying the £14 million Levelling Up Fund, which will further help unlock the full potential of the London Cancer Hub by increasing the number of trains to serve Belmont, where the hub is. Delivering the first relief scheme to the country for businesses who commit to reducing their environmental impact. Developing the St. Nicholas Centre, we have started to make plans for an exciting mixed-use scheme at the site. The medium financial strategy continues to show that despite the many savings delivered over the last decade, the Council still faces an anticipated budget gap of over £14 million by 26-27. The long-term funding of councils by the central government, the growing demand of services, and the extraordinary inflationary pressures mean that the council tax does have to be increased this year. We are proposing to increase Sutton's part of council tax by 2.99%. The expectation of the central government that the local councils meet the steep rising costs of social care continues. For example, the demand for adult social care has increased for reasons I've already explained. Similarly, there are even more demands for domiciliary care in children's social care and demand for support for people with special educational needs and disabilities. We have little choice but to apply this government's 2% uplift for adult social care tax to protect services and support those in need. To illustrate this, the Sutton's residents in Band D properties in 2023-24 will pay £1,614.24, which is an increase overall of 4.99%. Times are absolutely extraordinary. However, we remain focused on creating more opportunities for Suttonians, more investment, more housing for social people, and wide-ranging and high-quality services throughout the borough that our residents value so much. Madam Mayor and fellow councillors, I urge you to accept this budget, which is fully responsive to long-term cuts of 58%, changing social and economic circumstances, and new and rising demands. Thank you, Madam Mayor.